Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sea of Tranquility's Rant series. I'm your host, Pete Pardo, CEO and publisher of Sea of Tranquility. You can visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on the mighty YouTube doing a myriad of different types of shows. So today's rant, as you know, most of my rants are kind of have their genesis in conversations that I have with either fellow music lovers or family or friends or what have you. And this particular rant is about conversations that I've had numerous times over the last couple of years, but spurred on by two specific conversations I've had recently. One was with my dad, of all people, while my parents were over here visiting and happened to be listening to some like classic rock stuff. I think it was the Rolling Stones and maybe some other band. And my father came up to me, and he's, again, my father is 25 years older than me, so obviously his musical interests differ from mine, but he could appreciate some of those kind of classic bands from the 60s and 70s. And he was like, he goes, they don't make them like this anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, oh, like you never hear of any bands or singers who have like kind of that lasting impression that these guys did. I mean, he goes to me, he goes, look at you. You're still listening to a lot of the same, bands and what have you that you were when you were as a kid. He goes, but I don't get that impression from younger people today with artists and bands that they like. And that's absolutely true. And then I've had other various conversations with people in regards to, especially people my age who are, just as upset as me with all of our heroes, passing away, right? The rock stars are dying. It's like, you just look at the last couple of years. I mean, Greg Allman, and all the members of Motorhead, and Chris Squire from Yes, so on and so forth. There's so many. Ronnie James Dio, Gary Moore. I mean, all these heroes that we've lost. Keith Emerson, Greg Lake, John Wetton. This is all recent stuff. All these heroes that we have lost over the last decade or so. One by one, they're all going by the wayside. When you really stop to think about it, how many of our musical heroes from the 60s, 70s, and even, much of the 80s, how many of them are really left? And then you start to think, it's like, well, the rock star, as we grew up knowing, okay, you know who they are: Lennon, McCartney, Townsend, Daltrey, Page, and Plant, and Bonham, and Ozzy, Dio, Elton John, all these guys, David Bowie. Those were rock stars. Springsteen, rock stars, larger than life musicians, singers, characters, people, larger than life. In the last 20, 25, 30 years even, how many of these rock stars has the music industry created? Or how many rock stars have we, the fans, anointed as rock stars? Try and think. Can you count them on one hand, maybe? When was the last time a band came out that contained four complex, notable individuals like Led Zeppelin or The Who or the Stones, right? But there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the music industry is not creating these rock stars, why we, the general public, are not looking at them the same way as we did those superstars of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, okay? So let's go back in time. So late 60s, right? Got a band like The Doors, who produced a lot of great music in just a few short years. But what really was it about The Doors that made them extra special, that made them rock stars? You had Jim Morrison. Who would The Doors have been without Jim Morrison, right? You had this complex character, this out-of-control wild child, with his alcohol and drug problems and God knows what else going on up here in his, ticker up there. You went to see The Doors live, right? It's exciting. Not that I ever did, but I've seen plenty of live Doors shows, right, on video. There was this aura of danger and excitement and Is Jim Morrison going to fall off the stage drunk tonight? What's he going to ramble and scream about tonight? Is he going to, pull his dick out tonight? Is he going to smash a bottle on the stage? Is he going to throw up on stage, right? You never knew. So in addition to producing some great music, you had to go see them live because you had no idea what they were going to do. Okay? Zeppelin, Page, Plant, Bonham, Jones. You go to see a Zeppelin show, it's an event. Okay? Here you had this like super machismo, male god in Plant singing up there. You had Page, mysterious on guitar. Thunderous John Bonham, and then you have all the stories about the tours and what these guys were doing, destroying their hotel rooms and, all the women and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't happen today, right? Deep Purple, Richie Blackmore, is he going to smash his guitar tonight? Is he going to fight with Ian Gillan tonight? This element of danger, okay, that you just don't see today. Ozzy. I mean, you never mind just all the crazy stories of Black Sabbath. You went to see Ozzy, Blizzard of Oz, live in the early 80s. Geez, if he's going to bite the head off a mouse tonight, is he going to bring out another bat? The stories of Ozzy and Motley Crue on tour, all the craziness that went on. These were rock stars. You expected that from them, right? You expected the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, the crazy lifestyles. Elton John, in addition to the million hits that he had and best-selling albums, what crazy flamboyant costume is he going to wear out on stage tonight or in public or at this award show or what have you? You never knew, right? But you wanted more. You wanted to see what were they going to do next? What were they going to say next? What were they going to wear next? What woman was going to be out there armed? When was the next time we're going to hear about them getting arrested for public intoxication or Keith Richards? When's the next time he's going to get busted for drugs? Oh my God, it's just. And speaking of Keith Richards, is he going to fall down on stage tonight? Right? How crazy is Mick Jagger going to be? It's just there was this. In addition to all the albums, and that's another thing, because back in the day, these rock stars, these bands, these artists, they pumped out at least one or two, and sometimes 3 albums a year and toured. Album, tour, constantly, right? Because, we didn't have social media back then. So it's like in order to become a part of the lives of these rock stars or to embrace them in your lives, you had to buy an album and go see them play live. The younger generation today, that's not that important. I don't need to buy an album. If I like a song, I'll download it or I'll stream it. I don't need to go spend the $50 or $100 to go see them live. I'll go watch something on YouTube or whatever, right? So there's that disconnect. But in addition to that, it's like the younger artists of today, it's a much safer environment. Okay, there's not that expectation that every musician, every singer needs to be this wild and crazy, larger-than-life persona, okay, like it was back in the day. And even though back then there wasn't a mandate that they had to do that, that's just the times we were living in. The 60s and 70s, free love, drugs, experimentation, psychedelia, all that kind of stuff. The 70s, era of excess, as well as the 80s. The 80s was all about the image. We started in the 80s with MTV, the MTV generation. All of a sudden, now all the bands had to have this image. Right? Who was larger than life? Who was more larger than the next one? Glam and spikes and leather and all this kind of stuff. And the more that started happening, the more people turned to TV and different types of media to get their fix of these last remaining rock stars. And it's funny. Say what you want about Guns N' Roses, and I think most people who follow this show and our website know that I'm not a really huge Guns N' Roses fan. Never really was. I give them full credit. Appetite for Destruction, their debut, is a landmark album. It's a classic album. Personally, I think they've been riding the coattails of that album throughout their whole career. Because I think those few albums they released after that pale in comparison. But there's the reason why Guns N' Roses today can reform with most of the original members and go and sell out arenas, okay, is because they are rock stars. Guns N' Roses was like the last of the kind of traditional rock stars. Axl Rose, love him or hate him, the guy is a complete character, larger than life. Again, There's a little bit of that Jim Morrison in Axl Rose. I mean, look at the, between all his personal demons, and you never knew, who he was going to come out and scream at on stage next. Was he going to no-show a concert? Was he going to get into a fight with Slash? Then you had Slash, okay, the guitar virtuoso, the glasses and the top hat and the cigarette, okay, you can never see his eyes, you never knew, was he strung out on heroin or drunk or whatever, but always played really great. It's just this whole idea of these larger-than-life musicians who, they lived the life. You knew they lived the life, right? This wasn't all an act. They were the last of that era of rock stars. That's the reason why Guns N' Roses has been so popular. Other than the fact they had that dynamite debut album, you couple that with this kind of legendary aura about them. That's why they're still popular today. What was can you name 5 bands in the last 25 years, okay, that kind of fit that bill? Maybe Pantera, okay, although they're not around today. Pantera kind of were that throughout the 90s. But can you name any more? Most bands nowadays put out an album or two and they're gone. And the problem is, neither the record labels or the fans, the younger fans, have that kind of loyalty to a established or a new artist or group to stick with them over the course of a few years, to help them to get to that place that so many bands and artists were able to get to, 40 years ago. It just doesn't happen. So what you have is you've got the old guard. Some of them are still around. Judas Priest, for an example, okay? Just put out a new album the other day. Everybody's talking about it. One of the best albums they've done in, 25, 30 years. These guys are nearing the end of their careers. But, there's some of them are still hanging on. But once, what are we going to do when they're all gone? What do we do? When McCartney's gone, when Clapton's gone, when Springsteen's gone, when Elton's gone, when Billy Joel's gone. What are we going to do? There's going to be nobody left. Are we going to be sitting there for the next, 10, 15, 20 years, talking about who the next guy that one of the Kardashians was seen at a cafe or had sex with or had a baby with? Who gives a fuck, right? But it's all about the social media stuff right now, right? It's like who are they showing on TMZ tonight? Who's tweeting what? That's what's important nowadays. Here today, gone tomorrow. Okay, it's all that kind of instant gratification, and then move on to the next. It's not the way it used to be. So we're not creating rock stars anymore, folks, unfortunately. So, but for all of you who are like maybe age 40 to 70, who know all about and fully understand who a rock star was, are we going to have any of them in 20 years from now? Probably not, because I don't think the younger folks of today really care about all that. It's like they're not interested in what Mick Jagger's been doing for the last 10 years. It's just like, well, this week, what has Britney Spears done? Next week is what has Demi Lovato done? The weekend, so on and so forth. And nobody gives a crap about. 6 months later, nobody cares about any of these people. You look at some of these popular figures, maybe a decade ago. I mentioned Britney Spears before, right? Does anybody give a shit what Britney Spears is doing today? No, nobody does. Mariah Carey. Does anybody really care about Mariah Carey anymore? No. They're not rock stars, people. They were celebrities created in this kind of multimedia generation that we kind of glorified for a couple of years, and then everybody moved on to the next. All right, because if you're not out sleeping around or having a kid or walking in, crashing into your car, or opening your legs to the paparazzi in your car seat, that's what garners attention nowadays. There's really no music to back it up. There's really no legendary concert performances to back it up. It's just, kind of trailer park trash and train wrecks for the media. That's really all it is. So my point today is, the remaining rock stars that we still have, there's not a lot of them. Go out and spend the money to go see them live before they're gone. Okay, and we never have that chance anymore. Elton's doing his farewell tour. Leonard Skinner's doing their farewell tour. All these other artists are popping up and saying, hey, I'm nearing the end, whatever. Judas Priest is going to see them next week, Go out and take advantage while they're still here, because it's not going to last. And then there's none of them left. Then what do we have to look forward to? Everybody going to be sitting home on their computers and watching YouTube, because that seems that's what everybody does nowadays. It's not experiencing life. It's not experiencing the arts. It's not enjoying and embracing and taking part in what our remaining rock stars have to offer. So that's my rant for today. This is Pete Pardo with Sea of Tranquility. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. Like I said, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Actually, speaking of online stuff, I actually a couple weeks ago I guested on a very cool music podcast. We did a show all about supergroups. That's going to be airing very, very soon. I'm going to share everybody the link to that on the Facebook page and via Twitter. So make sure you check that out when I announce that, because actually it was a great conversation, a lot of fun, and I hope to do more with these guys over at Music Musings in the not too distant future. So anyway, till next time, we've got a brand new show. I got a ton of new releases I'm going to talk about. That's coming up this week, as well as I'm going to be doing all those band retrospectives. I got a lot to work on. So I'm back from travel and mini vacations and all that kind of stuff, so I'm going to be getting busy. So tune in. Don't miss out on any of it. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you soon. All right, bye-bye.